Hey, how's it going out there, maniacs? You know who it is, Madman here. One of the things I keep getting asked questions about is about jacket painting. Now, I've done a tutorial covering this. If you haven't seen it, I will link it in the description below, or you can click on it at the end of this video. You dig? However, my camera setup wasn't the best at that time. But now I've actually created a rig where I can look down on my workspace and I can actually film in pretty good detail about what I'm doing. So a student of mine wanted to get his leather bomber jacket painted, which is a really nice jacket, by the way. Look at this thing. This thing's beautiful. Nice soft brown leather. We got the sheepskin, neck lining, very, late 1950s, early 60s UK rocker, or ton-up boy, cafe racer type jacket. And he wants to get the back painted. And he wants to get a, like the skeleton of a crow. So what I'm going to do is do the skeleton of the crow, and then he wants his last name in big block letters underneath. So I told him, yeah, no problem, I'll take care of it. And I figured, while I'm at it, why not film it and give you guys a little more detail in how I paint my jackets and the process that I use. So let's go ahead and get on into that. Okay guys, here we go. The first thing we're going to start off with is we're going to start with the lining process, or the sketching process, to get the idea of what we're looking to do on this jacket. Now what I did is I just quickly did a sketch of this crow skeleton and kind of how I want it to look. Now this is just a basic sketch, just kind of like an idea for me to go off of, because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to freehand it, and I'm going to use a little piece of this chalky kind of chalk pastel type crayon that I have. And of course I have my ruler here, and after that I will be going over the lines a little bit more in detail with this bistro chalk marker. I've actually tried it out a little bit on a few things, and I think it should do a decent job just to get the lining where I want it. So the first thing we got to do is we got to take a look at our work surface here. I've got my master copy here, what I'm looking at. And here's the thing, guys. Always take your time with this, and if you make a mistake, just wipe it up, clean it up, and start over, So let's go ahead and start seeing what we can do with this. All right, we got to start with the head, so let's go ahead and try to get let's get the head going. See, and this chalk works real good to just kind of get an outline, the basic idea. And this is where you stay real light and you don't get too heavy-handed, because there's no reason to, really. Kind of get the beak in there, get this lining process done. Let's figure out where our eye is going to be. It's probably going to be about here. So now we got a basic idea of where this head is going to be. And let's go ahead and start putting the neck part in a little bit. Right here, I'm just kind of playing. Like I said, I just want to get an idea of what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and put this shoulder sockets here. And again, like I said, don't worry if you make mistakes. Shit happens, and it's not a big deal. This is just the beginning process. And if you know your tools well enough, you can correct any little mistakes you make, even if you start the painting process. You just have to kind of know what you're doing and have faith in what you're doing, and have done it long enough to really know your techniques. So I'm going to go ahead and start bringing the arm up here. What I can also use my ruler for is kind of lining up where things need to be to make them even. Same thing with on the elbows. Kind of start get an idea, kind of mark it off where things need to be. So that's kind of what I use that for. The one thing that's kind of tough about jackets is to get the get them to lay right so you can kind of get your sketch down. And again, we're going to kind of line it up. And that seems to be just about what we want. That's pretty much what we're looking for right there. Get that lining right. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of make the spot for the rib cage. Throw that spot in there. Kind of show where I want to maybe put the lung area, the rib cage, kind of in here, like so. Start making those a little skinnier. This is where you can start refining it. Once you have your basic layout done, you can start defining what you want. Just so you get the basic idea. And the good thing is this is like a longer coat, so you'll be, I'll be able to do as much as I want lengthwise, as long as it basically fits this way. I'll be okay. It'll look all right. I'm digging this setup a lot more, where I can actually show you what I'm doing from a downward position, so you guys get to see it from my point of view, versus the other video I did where it was sort of on a side down position. I'll just do a little one down here. That was like the bone parts of the wing. So at least now we have a basic idea of where our crow is going to be. All right, for the second process, we're going to use this Bistro chalk marker. You can pick these up like in a Walgreens, a CVS, some kind of drugstore, art supply store. These are basically the markers that you see the people in front of restaurants when they paint on a little blackboard. It has the specials, the soup of the day, and yada yada yada. This is one of the things that they use. This is basically like liquid chalk. So let's go ahead and shake this up. And what I'm using this for, now it's not going to last. It's not a permanent type marker, but it will help me put a nice stream of chalk down to kind of outline this how I want it to look. Be able to clean it up a little bit so I can get a little bit more definition in the picture. So you can see it's starting to pull the line more solidly instead of it being so broken and like it is. It'll help me when I want to lay down my paint where I want to put stuff. So again, I'm just kind of using a sketching mode, and I can put a little more detail in with this marker. And I do have to let it dry a bit so it kind of seeps in and holds the shape when I decide to use the paint. Let's go ahead and get the bone shaped a little bit. And as you see, guys, I'm going real light with this, just kind of defining over the lines that I've already made so I can get what I want out of this and get the idea. Like so. Let's kind of round it out on the shoulders a bit. Pull them in there. Get the next spot. Got to be careful to let it dry. I'm kind of dragging over some of my stuff. No bueno. Let's go ahead and start getting the ribs in there. So let's start with the bottom rib. Move it up there. Let's define the ribs. And again, when I'm just working out the kinks of the thing, I work real light. Things are subject to change, but at least it gives me a basic understanding of where I'm working and what I'm doing. So at least I get kind of an idea of what I'm trying to do here. That. Okay, let's go here, up here, here. Just gives me an idea. As long as I have an idea of what I'm doing, I can then go ahead and start making moves. As you can see, it's becoming a little bit more solidified by using this paint chalk, liquid chalk. See, and that's the thing about jackets is you really gotta try to stretch them sometimes to figure out where the lines are gonna go and all that. And if these look a little bit off, that's because they are. I usually correct that in the actual painting process. As long as I, again, know where I'm putting stuff, I'll be all right. I just got to know where to put the paint. And, you know, this side will be matching that side by the time I start hitting it with the paint. But just as long as I have a rough idea of what I'm doing. All right, guys. So now we're going to get into the painting since we've already chalked this thing out with this chalk marker. Just going to start applying some paint and figure out where we are. I'm going to be using this old palette that I use just for mixing and pouring the paint. And, you know, make sure you have yourself like a napkin or a towel, paper towel or something that you can wipe your brushes, keep them clean, you know. It's important to make sure that everything stays looking crisp. So I'm going to be using these 3 brushes. I don't need to be using anything really too thick. And as for paint, what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using some regular acrylic white paint. I'm really running low, so I have to be a little conservative with it, make sure I make it count. And I might just gloss it over after, just for shits and giggles. Maybe I won't. Just wanted to have the option there in case. And then, of course, I have my black acrylic and then some burnt umber that I'm going to throw into the mix just for the hell of it, just to give it a little bit of an offset of white. So we'll see what I can do with this. It's going to be done in coats anyway, so let's go ahead and figure out what we're doing here. Let me go ahead and, yeah, there's really not much paint in this left. Let's go ahead and pour some here in the mixer. Yeah, I need to make sure I go to the art store and pick up some more paint soon, because this ain't going to cut it. I may just water this down slightly because it's a little dry anyway. It's real thick. I don't like my paint to be too thick. I do like to have it watered slightly so I get a bit more spread out of it. Because again, I do this thing in layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw a little bit of this burnt umber into the next one if I can get it to come out. Yeah, I'm really getting low on this stuff. I need to get some more burnt umber. Okay, well, it's not really wanting to come out. So what we're going to do is option B. Take the top of it off. And it's still wet inside. So let's go ahead and dip one of our brushes here. It's a bigger brush in some water. Wet it up a little bit. Kind of slightly dab it off. And I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit in this cap just to mix in with this white paint, which is going to be the first coat. Because I don't want this to be completely white. I want to give it more of a tannish, like a really light, creamy tan type of a look to do our first layer. We're going to go ahead and take a little bit of water the brush up and kind of get it a little bit wetter and creamier. All right, so let's go ahead and start figuring this out here. Whoa, I'm hitting this with my head. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of paint on the thing here. Figure out what we're doing. Again, usually with the first coat, I'm real light, and I just kind of go around real quick. Things don't start cleaning up until I get towards the end of it, and then they start cleaning up. It's just the way I paint. It's kind of how I am in general with my drawing. Is I clean up as I go. See, one of the things I want to make mention of, you know, do things in layers, guys. Don't think you're just going to throw one layer of paint down on this and, oh yeah, all is done. You know, you'd be surprised sometimes how many layers you really need to kind of get the effect that you're looking for. And then there's cleanup work and detail work, and the process can be long and tedious, but it's well worth doing. If you make mistakes, don't worry about it, guys. I'm going to sit down here. I've been standing, my knees are starting to lock up a bit. Like I said, guys, don't worry about making mistakes during this process. I mean, this is the very beginning process. So, again, don't worry about making mistakes. If you're experienced enough and you kind of know what you're doing, you can always go back and clean it up. And I've been doing this kind of stuff for years, so I've made plenty of mistakes. I've probably made them all. Probably continue to keep making them. I make no illusions about my art or what I do. I'm not perfect, but I get it done. Definitely unorthodox. I do things a little differently. I do them my way. Like I think any artist should. Any artist should kind of have their own method of what they're doing. I jump around a lot. What we got now is we're going to start kind of filling this in a little bit more. I'll get down to the bones and the wings later. It's kind of more detailed stuff, and I don't feel like doing it right now. Let's go ahead and kind of mark this in. I'm going to go lightly around the eye socket. And then again, I've got my master right here, so it kind of tells me where I need to be. And I got to stop hitting this thing with my head. That's no good. But it's kind of hard for me to sit and see what I'm doing because I'm looking at an angle, so I got to kind of be down on top of it. But I really just want to kind of get the first layer of paint down. Once the first layer is down, I usually feel a little bit better. Yeah, this jacket is for one of my students. He's to be turning 17 here. He's not really a greaser or anything, but he definitely likes the whole leather jacket rebellion type thing. So he asked me if I would paint his jacket, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, man." And he's like, "Hey, I'll reimburse you on all your supplies or whatever it takes, or let me know how much it's gonna cost." And I'm like, "Dude, don't even worry about it." It's like, I've been helping him out since he was 11. I've been teaching him martial arts and life lessons, and I've been his coach for years now. And it's like, dude, don't worry. I'll do you a proper paint job on a jacket. I ain't gonna charge you nothing. And he's like family to me. He's like my little brother. So try to help him out wherever I can and show him the way. And all in all, it's kind of cool because now I can, show you guys how I paint it and what I do with it. So kind of benefits all the way around. But yeah, he's a pretty good martial artist. He's been training with me for a long time, and I enjoy teaching him. He's a good kid. He's had his ups and downs, but he's overcome a lot of stuff. Very proud of him. Let's go ahead. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get some kind of a first layer of, of paint down. Not so much just the line, but to get some actual paint down on the jacket itself, so I can get that to start drying, and then I can start working on a second coat and start figuring out where I want to put my lines and my shadowing and lighting and all that kind of stuff. It's been a while since I've actually used the paints. I actually broke the paints out, so it's kind of cool to be able to get the paints out and have a little fun with them. And I know you guys have been asking about a new jacket painting tutorial, and I think now we've got a better platform to do it on. Because I know a lot of you are interested in putting things on the back of your jackets. Yeah, it's funny when he told me what he was looking for. I guess has something to do with his family or whatever. The crow. I was like, I just instantly had this idea. I was like, let me research a few like crow skeletons and let me see what I can come up with. But I already had kind of the idea of what I wanted to do even before I started, so that kind of helps, you know. And I just kind of put a master plan down, and here we are painting. See, I live for stuff like this. I'd say my art is one of the most important things to me. If I couldn't do my art, you know, I don't know what the hell I'd do with myself. Be one miserable, lonely old bastard. Let's go ahead and get some paint down on these wings. Ow! Damn it. Fucking tight quarters. I'm too big for this shit. Let's get that layer of paint down. It's kind of hard, you know, I'm a little cramped in here, so. I mean, like I stated before, I actually like to do a lot of my painting on the floor. It's more comfortable, but for videoing purposes, I'm doing it here so you guys actually get a chance to watch and learn something. If I have to make any minor adjustments, I can always do that off camera. That's really no big deal. And one of the things I like about doing skull and skeleton type characters is they don't have to be perfect and beautiful, because they're not, you know. There's going to be mild, I don't know what you'd call it, like mild discrepancies in how the bones fit and look. And oh, I don't want to make it that thick up there, but we can fix that. You know, you don't have to make it look super beautiful or perfect, because it's not supposed to be. It's a, you know, it's a skeleton. It's going to be a little contorted at certain areas, and I kind of like that, you know. Because again, you guys can see I have a pretty free and fluid style to how I do my drawings. I don't like to conform too much. I like to be a little bit free, open with it. It's funny, doing this on camera is a lot harder than it is to just do the damn thing, get on with it, you know? I don't know what it is. It's like I have to be aware of multiple things at once. You know, what the camera's doing, what I'm doing, everything's in the shot properly. So for those that have big drawing channels or painting channels, my hat's off to you doing it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. All right, so now we got a basic kind of outline and got a first layer of paint down of our skeleton crow thing. Okay, guys, we're back. I let this dry up a little bit, and it seems like it's doing all right now. Yeah, this is pretty much dried in. All right, so what I did while I was away is I went and mixed a little bit more of the acrylic white in, and I decided to mix a little bit of the bright yellow acrylic paint just to give it more of like kind of like an eggish, yellowish type tint. So let's go ahead and start going over it with the second coat, because I don't want this to be completely white. I do want to give it a bit of a different tint. Like it's like maybe a little bit older looking kind of bones. Not so stereotypical with just the white and gray kind of look. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is clean this brush off. Use a little bit bigger brush so I can cover a little bit more distance. Make sure I clean this off correctly. Always make sure you clean your brushes out, you know. Try to make them last. Because I've always been a brush destroyer. And only recently have I really learned more of the proper methods of taking care of brushes, or at least doing a little bit better job at it. Let's go ahead and use this square brush so I can really kind of get more spread, cover more area. Kind of just go over lightly with this coat and mix in with the white paint that's already there. And that's the cool thing, you know, the more layers you put on, the thicker it gets, the harder it is to come off with, like, you know, rain, bad weather. And it really gives you a chance to thicken up your paint and do some pretty cool stuff with it, you know. I might end up doing 3 or 4 coats on this whole thing by the time I'm done. We'll see. Most of this stuff, guys, it's by the seat of my pants. I just go and see what I'm doing, it's all by feel. I never really have this real genius master plan. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, and sometimes I'll rough sketch it out so I have a copy, like a hard copy to look at. But ultimately, I just go. I just go with it. And whatever kind of happens, happens. Sometimes it ends up looking a lot better than I visualized. Again, don't worry about it being too precise because, like I said, I'm probably going to put another 2 coats on this by the time I'm done anyway. Damn, I got to stop bumping shit. It's starting to really annoy me. Long legs and shit. That's really starting to come in the way I'm looking for. I like it. Go ahead and water this up slightly so it doesn't dry too much. It might be a little too soupy, but hell. Yeah, it's a little too soupy, but you know, it'll dry. There is cover up and cleanup work that I'll be doing with this, so it'll be all will be good. Especially the chalk, you know, that's pretty easy to get off. It's not hard. A little bit of water, like a paper towel or like a washcloth, will pretty much sort that out. That's not a real big deal. I'm a little bit more precise with the second layer, but the third layer is where I start to really get more precise and get real picky about where I put paint. So we're going to go ahead and let this dry and we'll get on to the third layer. All right, guys. While I was letting this dry, I mixed in a little bit of this white acrylic gloss coat. And I did that because I'm kind of running out of paint anyway. And I do want to give it more of a shiny look. And then I mixed a little bit more of this bright yellow in as well. So now it has more of a yellowish tint, and I'll explain why I want it to look even more yellow than it does. The reason being is because when I start doing my shadowing effect and my lighting effect, I want to be able to have a medium contrast. So like I want to be able to do parts that look very, very white and some parts that look yellow and some parts that look a little bit darker, so I can start creating some kind of a contrast on this skeleton. This is going to be my third coat, and I'm going to get a lot more detailed with this and really start pulling these lines more seriously. So let's go ahead and start doing that. This is going to start really defining how I want it to shape up. You know, thinking about it, there may be even more coats than I thought with this, but we'll see. So you can see I'm not being so liberal with my my strokes. I'm taking more of my time with this because this is basically the defining layer of paint. See, everything else can pretty much be scraped off. Like if there's little excess pieces of paint I don't want, I can scrape that off later on, and I can wash it off, you know. Just protect the actual picture itself and clean it up, which I'll end up doing. So you notice here on the third layer, things are really starting to come into their own. Now you're starting to see more of a solid color come in. And it's like I told you guys, one of the things is make sure you do lots of layers. This is the third layer so far, and it's still not completely defined. This is how I like to do it. This is kind of like my method. And then again, my method is not to film it and just do it on the floor and spend hours and hours just working on little details sometimes, but I don't really have that luxury right now. I have to try to film this for you guys so you can get more of an idea of how to paint your jackets. I'll probably spend the rest of this night just doing this crow image. I'll do the lettering maybe tomorrow. Thankfully, he doesn't need it back real soon, so all good. I can take my time with the lettering because that's going to take a lot of measuring and making sure the spacing is correct and all the boring crap that I don't like, all the symmetry. All right, so we've got our third layer on. Woohoo! Right? I'm going to let this dry a bit, and then I'm going to start figuring out what's next here.